website as well. But I do have everybody on mute right now. There is a chat feature. I'm going to hold all questions to the end, and then you can chat, or you can, I'll try to unmute everybody at the end and get us going that way. So let me adjust my screen just a little bit. All right, so I'd like to welcome everybody this morning to Editing Field Data in Trimble Business Center. My name is Mark White. I am the training manager for Duncan-Parnell. Just a little bit about the company. Let's see if I can get my slideshow going. There we go. All right, so a little bit about the company. We were founded in 1946 by Charlie Duncan when he returned from World War II. Started off as a drafting company and doing prints in downtown Charlotte, still family owned. Mark Duncan is third generation. He's our president now. We cover pretty much the whole Southeast along the Atlantic coast from Florida all the way up to Washington, D.C. We've got 15 different offices, and we're nationwide on our web store. You can get anything you need there. Some of the different things that we do, I know you guys know us for our geospatial solutions, or you wouldn't be here at the webinar. We are the Trimble dealer for Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia on the survey side. And we cover a few more states than that on the mapping side as well. So, we do sell equipment, we rent it, we train on it, and we have full service centers throughout our territory if you ever need your instruments worked on or calibrated. We also have a big science and graphics solution business. We do a lot of things like construction signs, fence wraps, anything interior, exterior, ADA signage, and we're a full service sign business. So we all the way from consultation to installation there. We can help you out with any sign projects you need. Still do printing. That's still actually a pretty big business for us. So you can have your prints done at most of our offices. We also scan and archive your old prints as well. We do sell wide format and small format printing solutions. We're partners with HP, Canon, and OSE. And also we have a big business in additive manufacturing solutions. That's a fancy name for 3D printing. So we sell 3D printers. We sell scanners that go along with those printers. And we also do prototyping for people if they're not ready to get into printing themselves there, or 3D printers. All right, so let's get down to what you came for. Today, we're going to cover editing data in TBC. It's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to try to stick to the basics here, but try to cover a lot of things that I find handy for reducing your data inside TBC, whether it's GPS or conventional data, working with coordinate systems, how to, common edits that you'll see in the field there. So we'll take a look at how to bring that data into TBC. We'll take a look at how to create a local site. So that'll be going from grid to ground. So you can either work in grid, ground, scale of 1 in TBC. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll take a look at how to use the Project Explorer mainly, a little bit about the View Filter Manager as well to perform your common field edits. And then we'll take a quick look at Traverse Adjustment. That'll give us kind of our data all the way reduced, do the edits, adjust to traverse, and then different ways you can export your data out once you get it reduced there. All right, so I'm going to go live now, ditch the slideshow, and so you guys know how it goes when you go live. This is when stuff tends to break. So I'm going to open up TBC, and the rest of this will all be done in TBC. Now, you may have seen that TBC 5.30 came out about a week or two ago. I'm still using 5.21 on this. To be honest with you, I've just been so busy I hadn't had a chance to update yet. So as far as the way the menus look, there's not a ton of difference. There's a few different features, a few buttons have been moved around. But for what we're doing today, really, as long as you're on version 5 and up, it should be pretty much the same. If you're on version 4, things might look a little bit different there. So anytime you come into TBC to start with, you're going to have the start page here. It gives us the option of projects that we've had. You might have 15 recent projects just to give you a quick way to click on a project here. Or you got an option to start a new project or open an existing project. So we'll do a new project today. One thing I do like to do, my screen might look a little bit different than what yours does. Oh, let me see. My doggone mouse is not working. Let me see if I can get TBC to start clicking. Like I said, this is when things blow up when you go live, right? Interesting. I got a little red ball there and my mouse won't work. So let me see if I can get rid of my my little red ball and get my mouse to start working again. Sorry about that. Hold with me for just a minute. There we go. Let's get normal non-drawing mode and see if it'll work. There we go. Now it works. Yay. So one thing I always do is I like to go to File and Options. And under Options here, you can choose your theme to be light or traditional. The light theme is going to be light gray. So that's kind of what it comes in as a default, is the light gray where everything's the same color. I'm old. My eyes are getting old. I like to have some color on the screen so I can tell where the different buttons are and everything. So I'll be running it in traditional mode today. You guys can switch back and forth, you know, depending on what you like to look at. But just know that by default, it's going to come in light mode. So mine might look a little bit different than yours. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and create a new project. I can either go to File and start a new project, or I can just use the starting point here in the start page. So I'll just jump off here. First thing you're always going to see is your template screen pop up. You'll have international foot scale only, and then the same for metric and the same for US survey foot. So a question I get is, you know, what's the difference between the two? If I just select, I'm going to work in US survey foot today, so I'll use that as an example. If I just pick US survey foot, then the software is going to go ahead and by default set up a default projection that's working on an ellipsoid. So that way I can project my data out into a known coordinate system. Scale only, it's not going to do that. It's just going to work off of a scale only definition. So it's basically flat earth surveying, right? We're not trying to project anything using an ellipsoid model and getting into a real coordinate system. So if you have a situation where you're working in state plane coordinates or you're working in another known coordinate system, you'd want to pick just the units that you're going to use, like US foot in this example. If you're using assumed coordinates, or maybe you have a job that's, you know, on ground coordinates already, you don't want to add any kind of scale factors to it, you could just use scale only. Or you might have a project, I know like Georgia DOT assigns a scale factor to each job. So you could do it that way where you do scale only and key in the scale factor. All right, so those are the differences there. That's a question I get every now and then. For this job, we'll just choose US survey foot, click OK. And that's just going to open up a project that just has the units assigned to it. Give it just a second to open up. All right, so once that opens up, there's a couple of different ways you can set your coordinate systems up if you're working in real coordinates. I can either drag the job file onto the screen here, and TBC will read the coordinates that are in the job file, and it'll set the coordinate system up accordingly. Or I can go up here to my project settings, open up my settings, go to my coordinate system, and I can hit the change button down here to set my coordinate system up the way I want it to. So I'll run through that real quick. Click on change. I'm going to, by default, it's going to show up with all your recently used systems in here. So if you got a system or, you know, 4 or 5 systems that you use over and over again, they're going to show up here in the list. If you need to set one up, just click on coordinate system and zone. I will slide this over a little bit because it kind of hides some of the information in the list down here. This has got all the known coordinate systems in the world on here. Down at the very bottom, about 4 or 5 up, you've got United States State Plane 1983. So if you're using a state plane, that's what you want. This particular job was done when I lived down in Atlanta, so we'll choose Georgia West 1002. But again, all your state zones are over here, so you can select that. And then this job was actually done in GEOID 09, I believe, because it was done a few years ago. But I'm going to go ahead and update it to GEOID 18. So that's one of the nice things here. I'm going to hit the back button. If your crew, let's say they did it in Georgia East, but it was really in Georgia West, you can change that here, and it's basically going to reprocess their raw data and update it. So that's one of the edits you can do. If things get done in the wrong coordinate system, you can update them here. I get that phone call pretty often as well. You know, things got done in the wrong coordinate system. How do I fix it? So just by selecting the right coordinate system here, you could change geoids, or if they forgot to use a geoid, you can change the geoid in here as well. You do want to always set your geoid model quality over to survey. The difference here is the geoid is a gridded file, and this is just how TBC treats the grid spacing. If it's set to unknown, it's going to set the grid spacing a little bit larger, mapping quality a little bit smaller, survey quality, it's not going to try to parse that grid spacing out at all. It's going to use the full quality of the geoid. So we always want to, when we're doing survey work, want to make sure we do survey quality there. The vertical datum name, that's kind of metadata. That's totally up to you guys if you want to put that in there. If we're using state plane 1983 with geoid 18, we're going to be on NAVD 88. So we could just type that in there if we wanted to, or you can leave it blank. It's not going to affect anything. That's really just so that, you know, if you look at the project later on, you can see what it was set up at. So I'll just click the finish button now. You'll see here now I have a coordinate system that's set up US state plane 1983. I got my zone, I got geoid 18. So I am set up, and at this point I am working in state plane grid. Okay, so I'll just click on OK down here at the bottom. Now, if you're working in the same coordinate system over and over again, if you do this, you'll see up at the top, we've got an unnamed project. All I did was open a project, assign a coordinate system to it. If you're going to use that same coordinate system over and over again, you can go to File, and you can go to Save as Template. And that's going to create a template. Like for this, I could name it Georgia West G18, just to let me know that it's, you know, the zone, the geoid model, all that good stuff. And that way, when I open a new project, when you saw that template list that came up earlier, that'll be in there as a template as well. So you can always do that. Now, another thing, TBC does not autosave. And I've had that cost me a few hours of work before. So you can go in here and go to Options, and down under Project Management, you can check this little box and set a reminder for 5, 10, 15, 30, 60 minutes for this to remind you every now and then to hit the save button. All right. If you're working on a big project and you have trouble remembering to save, I would definitely set a reminder, because I have been burned before when I've edited a couple hours worth of static data. My computer blue screened, or, you know, something happened with it and I lost all that data. So it does not do that, but that's under File and Options. So I'll click OK there. Now I will go ahead and store it at this point. I'll do File, Save As, just to give my project a name and go ahead and get it cranked up. I'll just call it Webinar. And what's today's date? 5/7/20. All right. So now you'll see up at the top, I've got it saved. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see it says it's in US survey foot. It says grid coordinates and Georgia West. So I know, just if you've got version 5 or up, that's going to be down there at the bottom. I can take a quick look and I know if I'm working in grid or ground. All right, that's a whole nother subject. I think Trimble just actually reshowed my grid and ground seminar from 2017 the other day. I started getting phone calls saying, "Hey, I'm watching your webinar," and I was like, "I'm not doing a webinar today," but they had reshown it on Tuesday, so you can go check that out. It's on our website too, if you need to have a better understanding of how grid and ground works. But I'm going to go ahead and show you, if you're working in grid, you could just start bringing in your data now, and everything will be on grid. Okay, you don't have to do anything. If you want to work on ground, which I know we got surveyors all over, some guys working in grid, some guys working on ground. If you want to be on ground, you can come to the survey tab and you can go to local site settings. And under local site settings here, I can click on my northern, whoops, I'm going to actually do that a little bit later. Got ahead of myself. I don't have any data in the job. So let me bring some data in, and then I'll go ahead and select a point for that. Sorry, got ahead of myself there. So got everything set up. Let me drag some data in here and we'll go ahead and bring it up to ground. So a few different ways to bring it, or to bring your data in. I like the drag and drop method. Most of the time, I know when I was running survey crews, the crews would download their job data. It would be on a drive, and then we could drag and drop it in. If you saw my webinar 2 weeks ago, that was on Trimble Connect. You could use Connect to bring data straight into TBC. So that's another way. This would be opening up a folder. I can just drag and drop these in. From the Home tab, I can also go to Import, and I can browse to a folder on my PC and drag and drop those in, or select them and hit the import button. So there's a few different ways that that you can bring your data in. Drag and drop from a folder, use the import out of Trimble Connect, or if you hook a data collector up, you're going to get a screen that looks like this, and you can bring your data in straight off the data collector. All right. I like the drag and drop method just because I know most survey companies, guys, or a lot of survey companies anyway, guys are just downloading their actual job files, or maybe it's a JXL. Here I've got a feature library in there as well that the guys were using out in the field. So I like, we're used to using double monitors, and some of you guys got 3 or 4 monitors. So I can open up my folder on one monitor and I can just select all the data I need to bring it in and just drag and drop it over. I could bring those in one at a time if I wanted to, or I could bring them all in. Now, this is another thing that you'll see pop up in TBC. Since we set up a coordinate system, it's just telling me that when it read the coordinate system coming in from the data collector, there's a little bit of difference. Some guys tend to gloss over this. Don't ever do that. There's a little details button down here on the side. You can click on details, and it will actually show you the differences between the jobs. And they're going to be highlighted, or between the TBC project and between your job coming in from the field. And they're always going to be highlighted in yellow. So like here, you can see the field crews had keyed in a height for the project of 825. So Trimble Access requires you to put a height in the job when you create it. TBC does not. So if you didn't set the project height up, or if you set it up different, every time you bring it in, you might see that pop up, okay? If you're setting your coordinate system up in TBC. Then also, like I said, this was using G0809. I'm updating it to G0818. So no real errors there or anything. It's the right coordinate system. You see all that lines up. So not a big deal there, but don't just gloss over that when it does pop up. I'm going to keep the project definition, which is going to keep what I set up here in the office. Or you could convert over what the data collector was set up to. Click on OK there. Now it's going to read the next file, the Topo Day 2 file, and I get the same thing. Hey, it's warning me there's some differences between the office and the field. So this is a good way to QC the data. Just the other day, I got a phone call from somebody that said, hey, in TBC, I'm seeing one coordinate system, but I know my guys in the field used a different coordinate system. Well, it turned out the guys in the field used the wrong coordinate system. So if they had set it up in TBC first, when they brought it up, they would have gotten a flag, or would have got this screen to pop up, and they would have known that they had the wrong coordinate system. So anyway, that's just a good way to check it. Same thing here, 825, G0809, not a big deal. That's the only thing that's in yellow. If I saw that my coordinate system information was different, then that would be an issue that I need to address, right? So that's just a good way to check things as you bring your data in. So I'll close that. I will keep the project definition again. Click on OK. And now it's going to go ahead and bring my project in. Now, this is another thing. If you get warnings, there's 0 errors, but 8 warnings. Sometimes people tend to gloss over this as well. I always tell guys, hey, check your summary, because a lot of times it does have something to tell you that's a problem. So I'll click yes there. And I'll see here that I've got a message that my coordinate system was updated. My warning is I'm missing some JPEGs. Now, this was a job that was done back in 2011, I think, and some pictures were taken with the data collector. I have no idea where those JPEGs are, so that's not a big deal. But the other day, I had a guy send me a job, and it was saying that certain points could not be computed because of some transformation errors, and it gave a big, long list of points in there. Some of them came in, some of them didn't. Well, looking at those point numbers that came in, it told me where to start looking for where the problem was. So don't just say, I'm not worried about that, and gloss over it. I get, every now and then in trainings or dealing with folks, I, see where they're just kind of glossing over that. So don't do that. Take a look at it. A lot of times TBC is going to point you right in the direction of where your problem is there. So I'll close that. All right. Now I'll get back to where I was. Now that I got some data in here, like I said, right now it's US survey foot. This is all in grid. If you want this in ground, if you want it in grid, you're good to go. Just start doing your work here. If you want it in ground, you can go to survey. Now we'll go to local site settings. And what you can do is pick a point in the job to actually scale from. Now there are some snaps down here at the bottom. By default, point, endpoint, surface, and free is going to be on. I'm going to turn off free because I don't want to accidentally just snap on the screen and get a coordinate. But your snap functions are there so that you can choose points out there in the field or out there in the screen. So I'll just come over here and grab the coordinates for number 1. Now this is the point I'm choosing to scale from because it was the first control point I used, and it's fairly centrally located on the job. When you're going from grid to ground, just keep in mind this point that you choose is going to be equal grid and ground, and things are going to scale out from this position. So generally speaking, you want some place that's representative of your job site, because that's where your scale factors are going to be computed from. So I want something that's fairly representative of a central location on my job there. So you could pick any point. You could create a point in the middle if you wanted to. You could average all these points together and pick a point. But the key thing is just know that's where your scaling is going to occur from, and pick something that's pretty centrally located. You'll notice it did not pick the elevation of that point. That's because this elevation I use is what's going to be used to create my elevation factor for my scaling. So it's just wanting to make sure that that is the elevation I want to use. Now, if I just click here, sometimes you'll get all the vector information too. So I'm going to right click and tell it I want to get the elevation at the actual point snap. That way I won't get a whole bunch of stuff popping up. But when I click on point number 1, it's actually going to grab the elevation of point number 1 there. Okay, so that was just right click, use the point snap. Then I'm going to tell it I want to use ground coordinates, and you'll see right now my scale factor is 1. If I click the button here, it's going to go ahead and calculate that scale factor for me. And you'll see here, this was down in our Atlanta office. It's almost 14 hundredths per 1,000 feet. That's pretty significant because Atlanta sits at the middle of the zone, and it's at about 1,000 feet in elevation. So again, if you want more info on grid and ground, go to our website and check out my my grid and ground video there. But now when I click on OK, now you'll see down at the bottom, I'm not on grid coordinates anymore, I'm on ground, right? So if you wanted to work in grid, just leave it alone. When you set it up in grid, you bring your data in, and everything will be in grid. If you want to work on ground, that's how you can take your data that was done in state plane in the field and scale it up to ground. Okay. So once I've got it, I've got my coordinate system set up, I've got things set up the way I want it. It's time to start editing my field data. And there's a few different ways you can do this, but my favorite way to do it, or the easiest way I think, is using the Project Explorer. That should open up by default. If it doesn't, you can go to the Home tab, click on Project Explorer here, and this will open up over on the side. So this is kind of like a list of all the data that's in the job. Up here at the top, I've got my points. If I expand that out using the little triangle, you'll see all my points here. Now notice number 1 is red. And if I zoom in, I've got a flag there. All right, so that's warning me about something. So when I'm editing my data, I'm always going to look for flags. I'm always going to look for red numbers. Down here at the bottom, I've got a flag pane. That's always a hard one for me to say with my southern accent. So that's telling me that, hey, point number 1 is out of tolerance vertically by 1.137 feet. So right there, I know, hey, I brought this data in, I already got a problem, right? That never happens with field data. But I'll go ahead, and one thing you can do is right click on number 1. And I like to use this point derivation report. So just right click on the point that's red, go to point derivation report. And this is going to open up a little report that's going to show me where this point was derived from. So I can see that the coordinates for number 1 first came from a resection where the gun was on 1. I reset it off of 2 and 3, and those are the coordinates that are being held there. But then when I sat on 2 and shot 1, which looks like a backside check there, when I sat on 2 and shot 1, I was off 1.137 feet. So immediately in my mind, I'm going to go, okay, that was a backside check. So it was either a backside check or it was a check-in point. So did I have a bad rod height? Since it's isolated to that one instance, it's not on every point, then I'm thinking backside check. Maybe I had a wrong rod height, I had a wrong instrument height, or maybe I had a bad point set up. So just right there, now I got an idea from looking at the derivation report where that's coming from. And I'll show you in a little bit where you can actually drill down to that a little bit deeper. But I can see where that's coming from now, and kind of gives me an idea where to start looking, right? So point derivation report is something I use all the time in editing data. I'll turn that off. When I double click on any of these points in the list here, I double click on it. It's going to open up the properties box. Anything in blue can be edited. So just double clicking on a point, if your field crew have made a note that this point number so and so's got a bad point ID, I need to change the number on it, or it's got a bad code on it. Just by double clicking the point over here, if it's in blue, I can change it. Can't change the coordinates through here because they're derived from an observation, but I can change the point number and I can change the code. Since I brought in a feature library, if I click here, I've got my whole feature library over here, so I can delete out the feature there and I can just choose it out of my list here if I needed to change it. Now this really is a tree, so I'm going to keep that there. But again, if you have your field or your feature library in here, you can change your codes that way without having to remember them and type them all in. All right, so I can change the point information there. You'll notice that when I open this up, though, it also shows any field data that was attached to this point. So if I click on that, now I can see my station information, my instrument information, and my target information. Okay, so this tells me that the gun was sitting on point 1, the instrument height was 5'11", and it was set, the method was true vertical. So that means I was measuring to the cross on the side, that it was an S6, it was a 3-second gun, DR+. So it gives me all the information I need to know about the instrument there. Now, this is only related to this one point, so I really don't want to edit station information up here. I'll show you where to do that in just a minute. But this, if my crew had made a note that it had the wrong prism constant, wrong rod height, that kind of thing, anything related to this specific point, this is where I would want to change it here. I can look here, this got a 0 target height. I was using direct reflex. All right, so probably not going to be a bad rod height there, but let's go down, let's choose, I think 165 was a prism shot there. So if I click on that, again, I get the point information, EP shot, click here, and rod height was 6 feet. Says it was a prism constant of 0 and a custom prism. So right there, if my guy told me that really should be 5.5, I can type in 5.5, hit enter, and that's going to update the rod height. Now, I happen to know that these prism constants on this job were actually done with an MT1000. Okay, it wasn't shot with a custom prism. So I look at this and I go, all these side shots except for the traverse points were all done with an MT1000. That's a lot of things to come up here and update one at a time, right? But one thing you can do is you do have an optical spreadsheet in the list here. And the optical spreadsheet's literally going to open up a spreadsheet of every observation. And one of the things it has in there is the prism type. So I can sort and I can see all the ones that were shot with direct reflex, sorted again. These are all using the custom prism. So if I left click way over here on the left side of my spreadsheet, that will select that line. And then if I scroll all the way down to where my direct reflex stuff starts, I can hold the shift key down and T99 is the last one, hold that down, left click, and that's going to select everything. So all those custom prisms are now selected, and you'll see point IDs vary, status varies, code, all this stuff varies, but the one constant is prism types custom, and they all have 0 offsets. Now I don't want to change my traverse legs, so I can hold the control key down here and then select this and turn off, deselect those out of the list. And I'll just do that for all these little legs right here, so they don't get updated. Again, I'm just holding the control key down and deselecting those so the other stuff does stay selected. So turn off all the ones that had those. All right, so now everything that's selected has that. So if I go in there, I can double click on this now. I lost it. So let me just go back. There's my, I clicked too fast. That's what happens when you do stuff live, right? I warned you. So let me left click here, select that, go back down, and control or shift, hit that. So now they're all selected. Now I'll just change these all over to multi-track. Yes, I want to do it for all the total station observations. And I forgot to take out my other ones, but that's okay. We'll live with that right now. So I've got that. You'll see it automatically updates to the 300s there. And now if I go over here, hit enter, anytime you make a mechanical change like that, down here at the bottom, we've got a compute project that's going to be needed. So I do, if I change a rod height, I change a prism constant, I do need to recompute my project there. So I can come in here and say, click on my little red ball, and that's going to recompute the project. Or I can hit F4 on my keyboard, but that's going to recompute the project there. Now you do see now I got a flag over here because I've got a little error at 1200s on here because I really didn't need to change these prism constants in here. And that's because I got a little, I accidentally clicked on the wrong thing, right? So let me see if I can get in here. And I didn't check this before I did it, so I might need to, let's see if I can get in here and change that, or I might just not mess with it right now. So let's see, let me select those again, see if I can fix them real quick for you. Told you I'm like a redneck on Red Bull. Sometimes I get going too fast. So I'm going to go to all my total station observations there. And now I'll just change these back to what they should have been, which was custom, yes, and 0 for all of these. All right, yes, I want to change all of those. And then when I recompute that, I should get my little flag to go away. So there you go, bonus content there, how to fix it when you mess something up when you're fixing edits there. So couple of different ways to go in there and select things. You've got your spreadsheets up here for occupation when you're doing static, optical, vector if you're doing base rover stuff, but all of those will allow you to sort and select and do mass edits right there. Okay, so that got my rod heights right. So again, anything, or not rod heights, but prism constants right. Anything that has to do with a point that you want to edit, just double click on the point. I can edit the ID or the code, or if I click down here on the information, this happens to be GPS information, I could change the rod height, I could change the antenna measurement, all that stuff. You know, here's one that's a total station, so I could change, again, the prism constant, I could change the rod height. So point specific up at the top. Now I'm going to go ahead and minimize my points. Come down here to imported files, and this is if you have any station related updates. So you want to update something about the station setup, you know, if it's an HI for the station, a wrong point setup, this is where you're going to do it down here. So if I expand out the traverse job, you'll see each little total station here is my setup. So the instrument was sitting on 1001, that was station setup 1. Now a lot of times when guys, you know, are having trouble with their data, things don't look right, this is one place you can go and you can chronologically see how the crew set things up out there in the field. So this is all in chronological order. I can see how they set it up. I can see whether they used a last station setup. If I expand these out, I can see what they did. They did a single back sight. They turned rounds. They turned one set. Here's the observations for the set. Here's their back sight information. So I can see all that good stuff in there. I can see chronologically how they did stuff. Come down here to day 2. You know, if I click on this, I can see here's my instrument information. So if I change the height here, it's going to affect every shot that was taken down here. So there's all those observations that you can see related to a point up there at the top. But now I can see how these were actually, or I can make a change down here to the total station and it's going to affect all of them in there as well, right? I can also see my correction information. Had a phone call last week where a guy was saying all his measurements were out anywhere from 0.05 to 1/10 of a foot. His field crew had actually gone in there. It was 60 degrees that day. They keyed in 60 for the pressure, 60 for the temperature. It was an honest mistake. Just, you know, they fat fingered something. But what it did was with a pressure at 60, it was messing up all his distances, right? So again, this is in blue. You can edit this. All right. if you're going to do least squares adjustments on traverse data, you have to have this information in there. So if the guys didn't do it in the field, you can come in and key this information in as well for each station setup. And that way you can go ahead and do your least squares adjustment. So just know that's another thing that can pop up if you got distances. You know, when somebody calls me and they've got a distance issue, my first thought is always prism constant. We addressed that. Prism constants were right. Okay, so then we looked at the pressure. Pressure was jacked up, and that's what was causing his issue. So we can edit that. Again, that's just clicking on your station there, edit that information right there. Now, if I look at this data, this is a parking lot here. These are paint stripes right here. All right, so if I go to my view filter manager, I can click on show feature IDs. You can see PSB for begin, PSE for end. These paint stripes should be inside the parking lot, but we got a wrong station set up. Field crew wrote in the book that, hey, I accidentally set the gun up on 2, backside of 1. It should have been 1, backside 2. So another common edit that we have to make a lot of times. I can do that down here in my under imported jobs by expanding that job out, finding the wrong setup. In this case, it's number 2. If I double click on number 2, it'll open up those properties. There's the point ID. It's in blue, so I can edit it. So the field crew said that was really on 1. So I can hit 1 there. When I hit enter, it's going to say, hey, that point already exists. What do you want to do with it? I don't want to allow a duplicate point. I want to merge that raw data with the existing point number 1. So I'll choose merge there. Now that's going to move the raw data over there. And you say, Mark, I look at the screen, nothing happened. We've got to hit the recompute before anything happens. But before we do that, we need to come down here to back bearing. And when I expand out my back bearing screen, there's my, this little symbol right here is my backside symbol. This is another reason I like the traditional view, because it's red and white instead of gray in here. Easier for an old guy like me to see. Right now it's saying I'm on 1 back and 1 because I just changed this to 1. It did say 2 back and 1, but if I click on this, this is my backside information. So I can change this over to 2 now, hit enter. Again, I'm going to merge these together. Because I made a mechanical change, I either have to hit F4 on my keyboard or I have to hit the little red ball. Now you'll see all that data pop right back where it should be. Now the paint stripes are inside the parking lot. All right. So anything you need to do station wise, do down here in the Project Explorer under imported jobs. I can click on my picture of total station in the point. I can change my HI. This is another one that comes up. I've had guys in the field say they measure true vertical, but they actually measure bottom of notch. Guy in the office goes, all my data is off 6 inches. What do? You can come in here and change it correctly. Call the field guy. Hey, was that bottom of notch or true vertical? Oh, I was measuring to true vertical. Well, you had it set on bottom of notch. You change that in here, hit the recompute button. Everything's going to change by 6 inches. Okay. So that's another edit that comes up in there that you can do. Anything station oriented, do down here. Wrong point setups, HIs, measurement can be done down here. Wrong backsites. Anything point related, you can edit up here. So, you know, if I look at the data here, the prism type and the target heights, anything with codes and point numbers, I'll do up here. All right. That's where 99% of your edits are going to come. The other edits that I see are usually coordinate system based, and I showed you where to change those earlier. So that's a lot of your, your average edits are going to be done right there. But now once I got my data edited, I'll show you how quick and easy it is to compute a traverse here in TBC. So I've got my data edited. I'm all set. I'm ready to go. I got the right prism constants in here now. I can go to survey. And under survey, I've got the option to adjust traverse. So I'll just tell it I want to adjust a traverse. Now, Trimble does make you name a traverse. 2 reasons for that. Number 1, Trimble likes you to name everything. If you've used TBC very long, you've seen there's a lot of naming that goes on in here. But the other thing is, the nice thing is, if I had a big boundary here, and, then I wanted to come back, I wanted to balance the outside of my project. Maybe it's a 300-acre boundary. I want to do this traverse. Then later on, I'm going to run my curb control. I'm going to run my curb traverses through there, set my PKs in there to set the houses off of, or, however you're going to do it. I can have one traverse for the outside. Then I can come in and I can balance my other traverses coming across. So I can have 3, 4, 5, 6 different traverses in here. That's why you have traverse names. So I'm going to go ahead and call this number 1. tell it to create. Now what it's going to do is it's automatically, let me close up some of that stuff. It's automatically going to look at things that it sees as traverse stations. Now, traverse stations are points where the gun sat on a point, backsided a point, foresighted another point that the gun was later sat up on. So the software is smart enough to know what a traverse station is. It's going to look chronologically at the first one. It looks over here and it sees, hey, 1001 is where the gun was set up on this traverse. It's automatically going to pull that up first in the list. It's not in the traverse. It's got a green or a green plus next to it, just saying, hey, that's where it thinks you need to start. But you can start your traverse anywhere by using the drop down. That is where we want to start. We started on 1001, back in 1000, went to 1002. So I'll hit the plus mark. Now that's part of the traverse. I know that because there's a little trash can there telling me I can delete it. Now 1002 is sticking up there. Again, it's not in there. It's got the plus mark to add it, but I could go the other way if I wanted to. So if for some reason I wanted to run the traverse backwards, I could choose 1000. I could go the other way. I've had some guys tell me they've done that troubleshooting. I personally have only run the traverses the way they were intended to go, but that option is in there. So I hit the plus. Now 2 is in there. It's got the trash can next to it, and it kind of sees, hey, it looks like he's going this way, right? But again, I could turn around and go back here if I wanted to. But once I get about 2 points in there and it feels like it knows the way I'm going to go, when I hit this one, you'll see it goes ahead and grabs all the points. Now I could trash can them out and add in different points if it chose another way, but this is a pretty simple traverse. So it guessed the right way, or it didn't guess. It looked at the data and it picked the right way. So these are the stations that are in there. If they got a trash can next to them, they're being used in the traverse. If it's got a green plus next to it, it's a point that's available, but it's not actually in the traverse. So make sure you look and make sure the stations are in the right order. And if you have gone back out, the other nice thing is if you have gone back out because you realized one of these angles was busted or a distance was busted and you returned a set, make sure that you choose the right set. Like if I had sat on number 1003 and returned it, I'd look over here. S3 would be one set up. Maybe I'd have an S6 where I'd gone back out and returned it. Just make sure you use that drop down arrow to choose the right one. Another feature I like, because if you have multiple sets turned, you can choose which one you want to use there. Okay. Then down here at the bottom, just make sure you got the right backside in there, the right foresight in there. So you could set this up, using different things there. But this is the way I want it to run. Started on 1001, back in 1000, finished on 1000, closing to 1001. Well, then I can go down here and I can say, okay, I want to adjust my angles, either proportional to distance, equal, or none. I'll do proportional to distance. Vertical, proportional to distance, equal, or none. So if you weren't carrying vertical, you can set that to none and you don't have to worry about it. It'll just do your horizontal. Then you can choose compass and transit. You can actually use your adjust network up at the top for a least squares adjustment. I'll try to do that at another time. Right now, we'll just focus on conventional traverse adjustment. So we'll use a compass for this one. Now, there's an option to do it manually or automatically. Automatically, if either of these control points that I'm holding that I started off on, if the coordinates got updated on those, then it would automatically rerun the traverse and readjust all the points. I personally don't like anything automatically happening to my survey data, so I leave it on manually all the time. And then I can enable or disable that. All right, but before we apply it, up here at the top, we've got an option to preview our results. So I can look up here and I get all my information. Here's the stations that were used. Here's the orientation information. Before angular adjustment, here's my error, my misclosures, my precisions. After angular adjustment, it's going to show the same thing, how it adjusted it, what my closures are now. And then after distance adjustment, since I've adjusted angular and distance, everything should be zeroed out, right? If I like that, I can just hit apply. And now when I look in here, let me close that. Now when I look, just to cue you visually that you have adjusted a traverse in here, the traverse is going to be purple, and all the little points that got adjusted that are part of the traverse adjustment are going to have a triangle on them, just letting you know that those are adjusted. So that's kind of like, hey, that's your control now, right? And if I look at, say, 1004 in the point list, 1004, will show up as traverse adjusted now as well. So that's a traverse adjusted point. Now, any points that were shot from an adjusted point, any side shots are going to get adjusted too. So that's a question I get a lot. Hey, if I do a traverse adjustment, are my side shots getting adjusted? They're getting adjusted by default if they were linked to the control. So if they got a green line, a vector flowing from the point back to a control point, if it's all tied together, then if that control moves, then your side shots are going to move with it. Okay. Hope that makes sense for everybody. But now, kind of covering the basics. I was trying to go about 45 minutes. We're at 10:47 now. We brought some data in. We set up a coordinate system, showed you how to edit that, brought our points in, show you how to do the basic field edits on either points or station setups, and got our data reduced there. Then we went ahead and adjusted the traverse, got that reduced. Now we're ready to export our data, right? So under the Home tab, we've got a few different exports we can use. Probably the most common one is just a good old CSV file or a text file. I can choose point northeast, elevation, and code. Go in here to options. If I want to do the points, I can just say, hey, select points. If I don't choose anything, I just click OK, then it's going to automatically grab all the points in the job. All right. Or another nice thing I can do, I can draw a box around what I want to select, and anything inside the box will go. Or if I have a certain point range I want to do, I can come over here in the Project Explorer and left click, hold the Shift key down, and select them in the Project Explorer as well. And then just that point range is going to get selected. But if I want to get everything out, again, I can go to Options, select Points, click OK. Everything's selected. Choose where I want those points to go. Hit Save. Now, they hadn't exported yet. All I did was direct them where to go. I still have to hit Export to get those points to actually be created. All right, so that's one of the most common exports, just getting a point file out of there to bring into CAD. Okay, so that exported out. Some other common exports under CAD, you can do a DWG, a DXF export there. Under Survey, once I have these adjusted, if I wanted to send them back out to the field, I have an option for Survey Pro if you guys are running Survey Pro. And you can bring a .survey file in here as well. So if you got some Survey Pro in the house, you can use that as well. Or Trimble Access, I could send this data back out, or I could just select my new, adjusted control, send it out as a Trimble Access job to load on the data collector. Also GIS, if you're doing GIS work, you can do a Esri file geodatabase depending on your license. You can do a shapefile. If you just want to share your data with somebody in Google Earth, you can use KML, KMZ. So that's there as well. And construction, you can send out land XML. If you had a surface, you could send out TTMs, that sort of thing as well. So those are your basic export options there. So I hope that was helpful for you guys, just kind of highlighting some of the ways to troubleshoot data and to get your edits done and then to get your data out there. I do plan on doing another webinar coming up in 2 weeks. I'm trying to roll these out every 2 weeks since I'm working from home now, not going into the office, not traveling with training, trying to roll out webinars every 2 weeks. So Trimble Access 2020 just came out last night. It's got some new features in it. Like I said earlier, TBC 5.30 came out about a week or so ago. So in 2 weeks, on Thursday the 21st, I am going to do a webinar on what's new in TBC 5.30 and what's new in Access 2020. And then after that, we'll roll out some other stuff. Maybe, like I said, plan on doing some least squares adjustment, maybe some GPS static stuff, just different things in TBC, different things in Trimble Access. So stay tuned for that. But that's all I got, guys. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat window, or I will go ahead and unmute everybody. So, you might have to still click on your mic to unmute yourself. I've done the overall unmute, but you might need to unmute yourself if you've got any questions, or like I said, feel free to type them in the chat window. This recording will be emailed out to everybody that signed up for the webinar as well, so you can watch it again. Or feel free to email me at mark.white@duncan-parnell.com. I'll be glad to answer any questions that way as well. All right, so I think I got everybody unmuted. So, if, like I said, if you got a question, feel free to ask. If the audio is not working for some reason, you can just enter it in. Okay, I got a chat popping up now. Yeah, so that is a pain point right now, Joe. Joe asked, can you change a project back to scale only if you inadvertently selected a geodetic coordinate system? If I go up here to here and go to my coordinate system and hit change, it's not as easy as just going and saying, oh, I want to do scale factor only in there. What I can do, oh, whoops. Sorry, I just lost my screen. Let me pull TVC back up again. So it's not, there's not an easy answer for that. There is some place where you can go into your datum transformations and you can try to change it around there. But unfortunately, right now, if it is set up in a real coordinate system and you want to move it back, there's not an easy button for that. I could come up with some ways to like key in your datum transformation and little things like that, but there's not an easy button to just say, oh, wait, scale only. So that is kind of a pain point there. I'm hoping they'll make that easier in the future. Because that question has come up more than once. One big one I get is guys like, their field crew had it set up for state plane and they went and did a job in the morning, then they run over to a job in the afternoon that maybe it's, construction site, something like that, or an old job that's on assumed coordinates, and the job still is, they're setting the last job using the data collector. They throw in some chords and assumed, and they're working, project set up. You've got apples and oranges and distances aren't matching up and stuff. So yeah, that has come up. Probably easier to do some changing on the data collector. Actually, you can go in there and change it from state plane back to scale factor of 1 in the data collector, and then bring it into the office is probably the easiest way to do. And another thing that kind of brings me to another point. If you guys are here for a TBC thing, you're probably mostly office guys, I'm guessing. We can give you guys an Access emulator if you're using Trimble Access that you can load on your computer to help troubleshoot stuff like that. So again, my email address is mark.white@duncan-parnell.com. Shoot me an email if you'd like an Access emulator. I use that all the time to fix field stuff as well. So I could take a job like that, I could dump it in the emulator, open it up, change it to scale factor of 1, save it, then bring that job into TBC. And get it back to 1 that way. And I'll be glad to get you guys hooked up with an emulator. Trimble used to only give those to dealers, but now they'll give them out to end users as well. All right, guys. Well, if nobody else has anything, I do appreciate you coming. Again, if you think of a question later on, just shoot me an email and I'll get you a link to the video coming out real soon. All right. And don't forget, sign up for our next one coming up in 2 weeks. We'll be doing what's new in TBC 5.30 and Trimble Access 2020. So look forward to seeing you there. You guys have a great day. Stay safe. Let us know if we can help you with anything. Thanks a lot.